Democrats win on health care, environment, women's rights, respect for democracy. But on those issues, I bet you that are the big ones that they vote on more: crime, immigration, wars, economy, corruption. So that's the takeaway there.
The only thing the Democratic Party stands for today is opposition to Donald Trump.
Yeah.
And I just read Kamala Harris's new book, 107
No,
Days.
you didn't.
I did?
No, you didn't.
So Vice President Kamala Harris has released her latest book, an attempt to explain the lessons and losses from her campaign. But, according to some critics, it reads less like reflection and more like justification. The narrative leans heavily on outside factors, offering explanations that sidestep personal responsibility. Enter Bill Maher, the ever-blunt commentator known for cutting through political spin with a mix of humor and honesty. In his recent segment, Maher dissected Harris's claims with sharp wit, challenging her take on why things unfolded the way they did. It was classic Maher, direct, unapologetic, and unfiltered. Buckle up, because this breakdown pulls no punches.
When they ask who has a better plan, Republicans crushing it on crime, immigration, wars, the economy, even corruption. Democrats win by 2 points on respect for democracy. Now, some of this is just because people are stupid.
Bill Maher began his segment by taking aim at Kamala Harris's new book, 107 Days. According to Maher, even the title reflects a familiar political narrative, one that paints her as a candidate who simply ran out of time. But Maher wasn't convinced. He reminded viewers that Harris had significant campaign resources, widespread media coverage, and strong institutional support. With one of the largest campaign budgets in recent history and a major party behind her, Maher questioned whether time was really the issue. His takeaway was blunt. Despite having every possible advantage, the campaign still struggled to connect with voters. And that, he argued, speaks louder than any excuse.
Perpetuating victimhood, especially when it's false, is not a great advertisement for leadership. Kamala Harris's new memoir of the 24 election is called 107 Days, but it should have been called Everyone Sucks But Me. 107 Days is a victim's title because, get it, she only had 107 days to win. Yeah, and $1.5 billion and a built-in army of about 75 million people who'd vote for any human adjacent life form that wasn't Trump.
Kamala Harris's new book isn't just a political memoir. It reads more like a behind-the-scenes drama. In its pages, she reportedly reflects on her time with President Joe Biden, suggesting that his decision to stay in the race may have hurt her campaign's chances. She also raises concerns about the challenges she faced as a female candidate, claiming that the country still struggles to fully embrace women in top leadership roles. And in a surprising twist, Harris even hints that different running mate choices might have changed the outcome. Critics say the book focuses more on assigning blame than on self-reflection, while supporters view it as an honest account of political realities. Either way, it's a bold attempt to reshape the narrative around one of the most talked about campaigns in recent memory.
In 107 days, nothing is ever Kamala's fault. Biden lets her down by not stepping down sooner. Pouty face emoji. Gavin Newsom, he was asked for his endorsement, but texted, "Hiking, we'll call back." But then never did. And then he didn't even ask her to prom. America itself lets Kamala down by not being ready for the running mate she really wanted, Pete Buttigieg. So she's stuck with the Home Depot paint salesman. And the rest is herstory. Poor Kamala. We made her the star of a rom-com and didn't even give her a gay best friend.
Now, this part almost sounds like political satire. In her book, Kamala Harris reportedly blames one of her own aides for removing Madam President labels from cupcakes before they were handed out to supporters, suggesting that the moment somehow symbolized the beginning of her campaign's downfall. The story quickly drew laughs, especially from Bill Maher, who couldn't help but point out the irony. While most people saw a campaign struggling with serious challenges, Harris seemed to see a dessert-related conspiracy. It's one of those moments where reality feels stranger than fiction. And in this case, a batch of cupcakes somehow ended up sharing the blame for an election loss.
Look, ladies, I know this isn't fair, but we're all always running against the worst cliche of who people think we are. Women Democrats can't look oversensitive or preachy or unable to laugh at themselves. They also can't look silly, like Gretchen Whitmer did, trying to hide in the Oval Office. They have to look brave and...
There's no denying that many public figures within the DNC have worked hard to project an image of strength, confident, composed, and unshakable. It's the kind of leadership style that emphasizes control over vulnerability and power over emotion. But behind that polished image, some critics argue there's a growing pressure to maintain perfection rather than authenticity. In trying so hard to appear invincible, leaders can sometimes lose touch with the very traits that make them relatable: empathy, openness, and sincerity. True strength isn't about hiding emotion. It's about balancing confidence with authenticity. And that's what audiences today respond to most: leaders who are real, not rehearsed.
It wasn't a good look for the woman party that all the guys were speaking out for Jimmy Kimmel when Trump went after him, except on the woman's show, where for 5 days the outspoken hosts were suddenly as quiet as a geisha.
If you're wondering why Bill Maher recently directed criticism toward the hosts of The View, here's the context. It started when the panel commented on Maher's remarks about their silence during the Jimmy Kimmel controversy. Maher, never one to back down, responded in his trademark style, blunt and unapologetic. He questioned what he saw as selective courage, pointing out that when Kimmel's suspension made headlines, The View noticeably avoided the topic. According to reports, both producers and hosts were being cautious, unsure of how the situation might affect their own show. But once news broke that Kimmel would be returning, the commentary resumed at full volume. Maher's takeaway was clear. Real courage isn't about speaking up when it's convenient. It's about staying consistent, even when the spotlight turns uncomfortable.
Then on the 5th day, they rose and said, "No one silences us. No one had to. You silenced yourself." Whoopi Goldberg continued, "Did you all really think we weren't going to talk about Jimmy Kimmel? No, I thought you would, but then you didn't." 5 days? Talk about needing extra time to get ready. And if you can't take a breath and laugh at that, you're making my point.
Commentators like Sunny Hostin, Whoopi Goldberg, and Ana Navarro have become known for their outspoken views on The View. However, Bill Maher and others have suggested that their courage can sometimes seem selective, bold when it's safe, but cautious when controversy hits close to home. These hosts have built strong platforms by addressing social and political issues head-on, yet critics argue that they tend to avoid topics that could invite backlash. It's a reflection of today's media climate, where even the most confident voices must navigate the risks of public opinion and online outrage. The irony, some say, is that those who often challenge others are now just as wary of the same scrutiny they've helped normalize. It's an interesting cycle, one that plays out daily on national television.
New polling came out, and this is really, I'm speaking to the Democrats especially here, because Trump's numbers are down. They're down with Latinos, they're down with blacks, they're down 15 points with whites. And when whites say, "You're not hip anymore," ooh. And yet, in the other poll, on issues, Trump still winning. So this is your big opportunity, Democrats. He's down in the numbers, and you still can't score.
The Democratic Party is struggling to regain its footing, and the cracks are becoming hard to ignore. There's no clear leadership, no unified message, and no strategy strong enough to inspire real confidence. Instead, the movement feels trapped in its own echo chamber, shaped by extreme voices that drown out moderation and critical thought. Dissent is discouraged, and slogans have replaced substance. To make things worse, Kamala Harris's recent comments have only deepened the divide. Rather than reflecting on what went wrong, she's turned inward, assigning blame and rewriting history. The result? A party in turmoil, caught between its ideals and its inability to face uncomfortable truths. It's not leadership. It's confusion wrapped in confidence, and the consequences are starting to show.
When they ask who has a better plan, Republicans crushing it on crime, immigration, wars, the economy, even corruption. Democrats win by 2 points on respect for democracy. Now, some of this is just because people are stupid.
When it comes to raw popularity, it's true that Donald Trump might be losing a little ground. And honestly, that's not surprising. Maintaining sky-high momentum after such an unprecedented political comeback is no easy task. But here's the twist. While his approval ratings may rise and fall, Trump is still dominating where it truly counts. On the issues that keep everyday Americans awake at night. On the economy, he continues to connect with working-class voters who remember lower inflation and stronger paychecks. On the border, he's viewed as the only leader serious about restoring order. And on the global stage, his unapologetic America First stance still commands respect. So sure, Trump might not be everyone's favorite personality, but when it comes to performance and results, he remains miles ahead of the competition.
Democrats win on health care, environment, women's rights, respect for democracy. But on those issues, I bet you that are the big ones that they vote on more: crime, immigration, wars, economy, corruption. So that's the takeaway there.
The only thing the Democratic Party stands for today is opposition to Donald Trump.
Yeah.
And I just read Kamala Harris's new book, 107
No,
Days.
you didn't.
I did?
No, you didn't.
Honestly, that's the Democratic Party's entire playbook at this point: fighting Donald Trump. That's all they've got. For years, they've built an entire political brand around opposing him, milking the anti-Trump narrative for every ounce of attention and political capital. It worked once when Biden won, but when they tried to run the same tired strategy again against Trump and Kamala Harris, voters didn't buy it. People were tired of the noise, the outrage, and the endless Trump bashing. They wanted something real: policies, plans, and a vision for the future. But when they looked to the DNC, there was nothing there. No clear economic direction, no serious border policy, no leadership, just more slogans and outrage. The Democrats built their entire identity around hating Trump. And now that the outrage has faded, what's left is a party that looks hollow, divided, and completely out of touch with what Americans actually care about.
You probably know, it's like a diary of what happened, but I was looking for, okay, and what's the plan for the future? There wasn't any, and she's just indicative of the party at large. And by the way, that's one of the reasons she lost.
She's rewriting history in the book, too. She's now against men and women's sports. Like, come on. Like, they tried to dismantle Title IX against women when she was vice president.
Right. I mean, that's just one of many examples.
She could have had 701 days and would have still lost that race.
But you're right. The data says it's cost of living, it's inflation, it's immigration, illegal immigration, right. All those things. Everything else is at the bottom.
And by the way,
law and order crime.
107 days, way too many for anybody, but including her.
Right.
But the more they got to know her, the less they liked her. I've said this many times on this show. Other countries don't do this. They don't have years to.
Maher is absolutely right. The more Americans got to know Kamala Harris, the less they liked her. And honestly, who can blame them? People quickly saw through the glossy Hollywood endorsements, the scripted photo ops, and that painfully forced charisma. Beneath all the political theater, there was nothing real, just empty rhetoric wrapped in a nervous laugh. Every time she faced tough questions, she'd dodge, stumble, or break into that now infamous cackle that became her trademark. It was clear she wasn't ready for the pressure or the policies. Voters were looking for authenticity and leadership. What they got was a walking PR campaign. Kamala Harris wasn't destroyed by her critics. She was exposed by her own hollowness.
Call an election, and they have an election in a month.
Yeah, and nor the influence of money. We should do that. Right?
Yeah, that's going to be hard to get rid of. They've tried. Yep. But, no, it's like you don't need 100 days. You need 107 days. You tell people your plan. This is what I am for. This is my thing. You're selling something. You're selling a vacuum cleaner. If I'm selling a vacuum cleaner, I'll tell you why I think it's best. Am I going to tell you every goddamn day for 2 years? Did I tell you about the attachment that gets under the... Yeah, you did. You told me 1,000.
In the end, Maher's takedown of Kamala Harris and the Democratic establishment was brutally honest and painfully accurate. The DNC has no clear leader, no real message, and no connection with everyday Americans. Kamala's blame game, the View's performative bravery, and the party's endless obsession with Trump all expose a movement that's lost its direction. Maher simply said what many already feel. The Democrats aren't losing because of Trump. They're losing because of themselves. Until they stop chasing wokeness and start embracing accountability, they'll keep writing books about defeat instead of chapters of victory. And that wraps up today's video. If you enjoyed it, hit that like button, subscribe for more deep dives like this, and don't forget to turn on notifications so you never miss an update. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.